Welcome to Conscious Dominance, a DSRX studio production. These weekly conversations explore how to approach mindful leadership and inner dominance within the powerful container of committed, intentional relationships. Join Eric as he invites new dialogues, sharing practical insights for how the craft of consciousness opens the aperture to love, serve, and connect with unwavering presence.
Welcome back to Conscious Dominance. I'm Eric. I just finished an episode where I spoke about pain. Today I thought I'd invite Rachael for us to dive deeper into something that came up in our own conversation about pain. I talked about being present with pain, not resisting it, not trying to fix it, not trying to flee from it. But there's a next step that I barely touched on, and I thought Rachael would be the perfect person to speak about this. She, in fact, has created an entire course and teaches people about these next steps and what it is to sit with your pain, hold your pain, transform your pain, and even befriend your pain, and even to see where is it just discomfort and to catch it as a discomfort before it even becomes pain. So I thought it'd be great to have you here today to talk about pain in women.
So it's a tool, it's a piece of information. I feel like a little scientist in the laboratory, to gather the data. People have heard me say this a lot because data is so helpful to be able to recognize what comes next. So if we can use the befriending word to simply say, can we welcome in, and as one of our teachers says, make a cup of tea for the sensations that we're feeling, whether it's pain or discomfort or any of the menagerie that we can feel. We're using this as a piece of information, not being a victim to it and not rushing to get out of it, not trying to fix it, not trying to do anything except give it spaciousness to give us more information. And that can be really valuable. Sometimes we all need to be in our pain, and for partners to be okay with that is a really powerful tool for not only healing, but certainly Eric and I have found that the various ways that both men and women, people in the masculine pole, the feminine pole, are experiencing and expressing that pain differs.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's spot on. And I think something that I've spoken about and that I want to just really bring home is that we're conditioned as men often to avoid our pain, to numb it, to externalize it, and to see that when we're blaming other people, it's another way for us to start avoiding our pain, because to take responsibility is to feel the pain, because whenever you're taking responsibility, there's a gap between the ideal and where you are. And if that ideal is something you actually want, you're going to feel pain about not being there. So conscious dominance is a different path. What it is really taking dominance over that numbing quality, that part of us that wants to avoid it, and say, no, wait a second, we're going to face it. We're going to be present with the pain. And what I'm bringing Rachael here to talk about, that I really want to dive in, is that pain becomes like fuel, or becomes something that you can alchemize, that you can transform, that you can change into something that I think most importantly is an action that has some purpose behind it.
Yeah, this is what feels like the bridge that we experience and talk about, that's between presence and creativity. And we talk about presence a lot, so we're going to talk more about it, just always defining and expanding not only what that means, but also what that is in practice. Same thing with creativity. We've heard this word so many times, but what does that mean in concept, but to bring a practical edge to it? And how that can really be an authentic motivation for change, for evolution, not in a forced way, but in an organic, evolved way. And, I think part of this came up yesterday when we were discussing how I was in a waiting room with my dad. And so as we walked in the room, my dad suggested that we go sit in the chairs that were furthest away from where he and I would have to later walk towards the practitioner's office. And so my hesitation, he observed and said, "Why are you hesitating? Why wouldn't we go sit over here?" And I thought to myself, why am I hesitating? And as I sat there with him, I said, I think I know what this is. This is something that Eric's been teaching me so much. My consciousness is always looking for the way for me to spend the least amount of effort in everything I do. But even in observing that and reflecting it with my own dad, I noticed that it doesn't even dawn on him as an aging elderly person who had just had a surgery to save his steps. And there's a spoon theory that Eric actually taught me in the beginning of our relationship, where a spoon really just represents a unit of energy, and that each day there is a majority of the population who wakes up with the same exact number of units of energy every day. They sleep, they wake up with 10. But people with chronic pain, or many people of the population, including women and people who are aging, may wake up with 3, may wake up with 10, may start with 10 and quickly go down to 2. A shower takes up 3 units of energy some days, but some days gives you energy, and it's very inconsistent. And for those of us who are familiar with human design, it's another way of saying that we have an inconsistent source of energy versus something that is much more consistent and much more reliable. And that spans across genders and across age frames. I think that's very interesting because I noticed that with Eric, with my dad, with other men, especially with Eric, because I spend the most time with him, he genuinely doesn't seem to notice that making 2 or 3 or 4 trips back and forth to the car to bring in our groceries and the things we've gathered throughout the day doesn't seem to ever hit his radar that that could be done more efficiently. In other words, carrying more things per trip. And as I've expressed this to other friends, female friends, and people, they tend to just nod in an awareness that, yeah, this is every woman ever who is exhausted and really wants to spend the least amount of steps or movements of energy, not because of a fitness purpose, but because we're genuinely tired, fatigued, burnt out, whatever word you want to use. And I think that's been really interesting. And I've been very slow to not just understand that, because I teach this and I see it and encourage that in so many humans, but actually to feel the affect and truly allow myself to choose differently. And in that moment with my dad, we had a good laugh. We were praising Eric on how much he does and how much more relaxed I am in his presence, because he is looking out for me to both be somebody who has movement in my day and does so as he reads my energy and takes a hold of how much did I sleep and what else do I have going on, but also is empathetic and very structured in the way that he encourages me to downshift and be more off. In other words, to take on less in the day. And so I can notice myself still, after so many years, occasionally catching that thought. And the whole purpose is to catch the thought where I may make up a narrative in my head that Eric is mad at me, that he or other people may be resenting me because I'm not opening the door for myself, or I'm not doing enough work, or I'm not efforting as much as they are, that I'm not contributing enough to the household or to the dinner party or to whatever that may be. These are stories, these are conditions and habits inside of that. Part of that is recognizing that women do tend in our habit and in our culture to carry so much emotional and logistical burden that we do so to protect the people around us. Stereotypically, the masculine men that are unconscious and are in the immature phase may not want to do the work and may have never been experiencing what this dynamic can be. They may not choose what the first pillar is in conscious dominance, which is to take responsibility. Yeah. And that for me is a recognition that men, as Eric spoke about very beautifully in the last episode, see relationship and women as a place of comfort, as a solace, as an oasis, as a place for restoring their well being. And for women, relationship is a lot about responsibility, stereotypically. And so this is where this journey in my own life, personally, and in my business has been very transformative. That Eric has consistently had to be very firm, very encouraging, very loving, and tried many different methods to help me feel into the clarity that exists when I can feel that my energy is right, when my heart is in the right place, and when he can be very directive to me. For example, let's say we're coming home from a day of gathering wares and we pull into the driveway and he says, in a pre-paving kind of way, here's what's about to happen. I'm always titillated by a sentence like that. And then he'll say something to the effect of, you're going to carry in your phone and you're going to carry in your beverage, and that's all. You're going to go inside, you're going to shower, or he may say you're going to go inside, you're going to lay on the bed, or you're going to go inside, you're going to play with the dog, and that's it. And then I'll be in there, and in 15 minutes, I'll come get you. And I still as in yesterday, can find myself saying, can I carry in the purse? Can I take the backpack? It seems logical that I would take this one thing. And even now, it's really hard for me to just feel into all I have to do is take myself inside and enjoy. It's still so hard. And I think that that ties back into the way that we're seeing how men are really alchemizing or taking a woman's pain. And in the last episode, you really spoke about what it is to befriend it, to sit with it, to be with it, to bring a presence and a acknowledgement that it exists, which is huge, by the way. But to take that into another step, where is the feminine's pain, where it's not just the societal pieces, or as he talked about, the psychological piece, but there's a very interesting nuance in something I may continue to define as discomfort or a squirm, but what it is for us to be in that moment. It is uncomfortable for me to be directed. It is uncomfortable for me to not be in my traditional habit of contributing at the nth level in the hypervigilant, extra effort A++ student that I am. And for me to rewrite the code in my body of how it feels for me to actually go inside and relax, knowing that he is doing everything that needs to be done. He's incredibly competent, and it gives him energy, and it gives him a sense of accomplishment. And I don't want to speak for you, but I've heard him say so much in the encouragement of what that actually gives him. And so we're just introducing this here, but we'll keep talking about
I think
this.
that is a really important point that you're making. And I think this is the big differentiation within the conscious dominance in our relationship. There's a double standard. It's not fair. It's not fair. There are things that I'm going to do that you're not going to do. There are things that you're going to do that I'm not going to do. And you have very different responsibilities and different discomforts that you're going to be confronted with, and ones that I'm going to be. And one of the primary sort of shifting that we're doing intentionally is to say the discomfort that I need to embrace is to take on more responsibility. The discomfort that you need to take is to take on less responsibility. And that comes with a caveat, because some of the things that, first of all, just receiving that from someone else and not feeling like that person's going to be resentful of the fact that he's taking on. So that's number one. Number two, that we can speak more about too, is that you're going to be uncomfortable with the fact that some of the things that I'm going to take from you, I'm not going to do as well as you've been doing. So that's another discomfort that you have to sit with. Third, there's another discomfort of some of those things that I'm going to take. There's going to be a transitionary period that's going to feel like a little bit of an RX moment. And I think this is one of the biggest differentiating facets of our relationship, that is our ethic. And it's the reason why it's underneath this point of pain or discomfort is that I'm attempting to be more conscious of the pain and discomfort that you feel. One of the big things is that you just mentioned, and most women, especially as they get older, but most women, I believe, have a limited amount of spoons, a limited amount of energy, a limited amount of pain that they can actually handle and take. And so, what I want to do is say, hey, the way that we achieve freedom, the way that we achieve a conscious dominance, the kind of relationship that we're interested in, is that I'm going to be more mindful and conscious about which facets of that I'm going to be bringing to you, and to choose that. And conscious dominance is about me transforming my pain. And it's not about necessarily seeing that this pain or this extra effort is a negative thing or a problem thing. It actually creates strength in me. This is what it's about. Testosterone. I'm not necessarily always interested in doing extra steps for extra steps reasons, but as I do the extra work, I think about how can I make it better? How can I be more efficient? But I need to feel the burden or the pain of it to do it better. And I would rather me feel it and take it on than you feel it and take it on, because I know I can alchemize that. And for you, you've got so much overload. It doesn't serve you to take on that extra. I get testosterone from it. I want you to have less testosterone. I want you to be more in your feminine, more in your softness. I want to be more in my hardness. One of the quickest ways to be more in your hardness is to take up responsibility and execute on it. So this is what works for us. The pain of me watching you go through unnecessary pain is not a pain that I want to see. I'd rather you have the discomfort of witnessing me go through some discomfort and pain. But that's an adjustment. And then coming through the other side, and then you can become inspired by it. And so you've been carrying so many physical things, so many emotional things, so many logistical things. It's the invisible work of every woman. And I think your family, you do a lot for your family, you do a lot for your clients, you've done a lot for me. And as I've paid attention and noticed this, I see all the dates, the deadlines, the appointments, the responsibilities, everything you need to do just to be a human, all your health issues, work issues, what to eat, what to wear, caretaking for your dad, caretaking for any number of things. So I say to myself, and we've mandated, I said, everything in the external world, stop, because I can see it. I know what to do in those situations. Let me take care of it. But that's one of the ways that we've shifted this. And I would love for you to speak a little bit more, because you've been really eloquent at helping your clients to women's invisible work. And I think with the invisible work is the woman's hidden invisible pain.
Yeah, I think that my experience as a young woman and witnessing a lot of people who I've worked with who are double and sometimes even triple the age of me over the years is that women can experience men as detached and unaware, and maybe even have a lot of criticism about how they're absolutely not competent to be part of a woman's world. I've noticed and observed how much women, myself included, keep them in the dark, keep men in the unaware category. I think that this part of recognizing how often the subtlety, so it's challenging to call it pain as somebody who has a lot of chronic physical pain, as I think that's a common thing in our world these days, which Eric has spoken really beautifully about, with women being in a lot of autoimmune and other hormone imbalances and all kinds of ways that we put ourselves through masculine hoops, only to come out the other side feeling incredibly rigid and incredibly unwell. So I think that I carry so much, and most women do as well, so that we don't bring burden or annoyance or nagging into the field of anyone around us. So it's a protective method for us, not to protect ourselves, certainly, but for us to protect the men around us and the people around us. I don't want to be known as somebody who complains. And if I did, it's not like anyone would change my situation anyway. That's been my experience and my narrative as a young woman growing up. But I've never felt angry about that. It's the water I swim in. That complaining doesn't change anything. So why would I even say it? Why would I express or give feedback or observe and report, as I like to say, anything that I'm experiencing? All it shows is that I am weak or that I have pain. It shows my cards. It allows people to have information about me. So I experience and take that on and just move on with my life. Eric said in that episode last week that women are the most stoic, and it does feel that way when we're scared, when there's a deadline, when the money's out, when we're hurting in any way. I just stick with it. I go into my willpower and feel a perseverance energy, a stamina for discomfort. And I recognize through Eric's observation that my depletion affects us. It affects our partnership because we are in a partnership that is devoted to unity. It affects my capacity to be present with him, to be sexually available and vibrant in the way that I want to express myself through my creativity, which is my sexuality, to be a good friend or a family member. I'm snappy, and I can feel myself, as Eric has brought to my attention, how truly lunar I am, how I am here as a reflective surface and a being who can be a mirror. So if I started, which I did, with his direction and urging, and honestly, it made perfect sense to me. If I started being honest about what it is that I was actually feeling and show him that I am feeling annoyed, tired, hot, discombobulated, whatever it is, I have no idea what's going on, and that's also information that I can feel very peevish for no reason, that I can feel concerned and irritated, that all of this becomes a mirror or a wake-up call for him. It becomes, as he said, the fuel. If I were to show him all the storms, all the little pop-ups, and when I'm raging and when I'm still giving him as much as I possibly can at any given moment, it's a titration into this persona that I also thought was accurate my whole life, that can blow his own fuse and really challenge him. It challenges me too. It is uncomfortable for me to be in such honesty. I am squirming as I do so, even on the most minor moment to the biggest storm or blow up that I may allow myself to be seen within. And as I do so, whether Eric drops the moment or whether he holds steady or has some combination in between, he is so encouraging to say, keep bringing this to me. I'll get stronger. I can do this better. No matter how shitty I just handled that moment, it's going to help me. I get stronger. I just wanted to say one more thing, that so often with my clients, I say to hand them the people around us just 1 pound at a time, because if we give them the 25-pound weight of our entire history of rage, they're definitely going to be injured by it temporarily. But if we can start moving this in a measured way at first, it's huge, because we also have to get used to the discomfort of how honest we can be, mostly admitting how much we've been dishonest in our hiding.
It's because the muscles are atrophied. 25 is not that much, but what you're saying is that most women.
It is to a 3-year-old.
Yeah. And I think to a 3-year-old or to most men, which have not been told the truth. And I think that's a big part of it. You have to keep showing up, even though he drops you. And I think that's what I keep telling you again and again, that I think the biggest critique that I have is that women don't use their voice, and the women have to feel safe to use their voice, and they don't want to use their voice because the men react. So we're in a catch-22 kind of idea. But the pain that I feel is the fuel for the transformation that's necessary, because I want to win. I want to do well in your eyes. And if I'm feeling something's amiss, I want to know that something's amiss. And I think you do a beautiful job of not nagging. And we can talk about what is nagging or complaining. But what I found, because we've been at it, it does get easier. It gets easier for me. It gets easier for you. Our lives have gotten better because of it.
Absolutely.
Much better. I think there's less fallout, there's less reactivity, but that's only come from leaning into the pain. One of the things that I've noticed from being with you that I didn't realize to the degree is how hypervigilant women are. I think for safety reasons, for other reasons, always on, always alert, always carrying loads that they could share, and resenting the fact that no one's picking them up, but also resenting that they would even have to ask anyone to do it. And they're planning, they're coordinating, they're anticipating, all in a way so as to have less to do. So they're not fueled by the activity of it.
Oh, I just wanted to say something to what you were saying a minute ago. Part of it getting better and better and better, that there is less fallout, but even if there is fallout, it lasts less time. And so we're looking for measurements in all kinds of subtle ways. Not that he doesn't drop or that you don't bring the full throttle. It's not always so black and white. So how can we always be looking to set ourselves up for success, but also to set each other up for success, and to see and reflect in what Eric likes to call the action report. So if we have a scuffle or a crisscross or zigzag, as I like to call them, a moment of discontent, that we will go back when we're in a place of connection and look backwards at how it happened and see the wins and see the ways that we are progressing. That's been a really big part of our culture and ourselves, which has been really beneficial to both of us. And I think that what he was saying also about the hypervigilance that I carry, that women carry, is in essence the crux of conscious dominance. That everyone says women needs to use their voice and to be in their expression. And when I say everyone, people who are really working in this field. But not always do we talk about what the full extent and the ramifications of what that actually means. As a woman who works with a lot of submissives and people who may identify in that pole, or may just be in the highly feminine side of that pole and not identify with submission at all, there is a huge pushback on the way that the consequence would be detrimental if they actually started using their voice, also known as telling the truth. That most women live with partners who don't know how much women keep hidden. I don't actually think most women know how much they keep hidden. And as somebody who's been doing this work and in this field for 25 years, it was surprising to me to keep discovering layer after layer of the ways that I was in my own layers of dishonesty. In other words, not showing my own transparency just with myself, finding ways that I, with the best of intentions, even just to be more demure or to be more mysterious or whatever part of my own feminine identity I was holding onto, with even just a gentle hold, how many layers of that existed, much less the places of emotional weather, as we may say, that I was honestly lying about. I was lying to myself because I have become a pillar of being able to mask, being able to be in my smile. I am known for this smile, and to be able to hold that internally and turn that gaze always to the place where I can feel good in any moment by myself in my own brain. I'm great and not reacting. But the cost of that has been great. So the main thing I want to call out here is that if we don't use our voice at all, and then all of a sudden decide that this marriage is over, this relationship is over, I'm done with this job, we never gave the other person a chance to show up for us because we were not willing to be in our discomfort. It is uncomfortable to bring a truth to a person and see them in their discomfort because of something that we said or did or feel. That makes us, quote, at fault and the cause of someone else's pain, their affect. So I think it's been interesting in reflection, feedback I've gotten from previous relationships when I was able, from a friendship point of view, to ask, how could I have done better, or what was something you observed in me in our relationship? I was shocked and fascinated with the part where feedback from previous lovers was an accurate complaint that I never told them while we were in relationship, how much I suffered. I kept quiet. I kept the peace. I chose to maybe make hints that weren't clear or mention something once very sweetly, walking on eggshells, but never ever did I say or show with my demonstrative way, with my body language, with my tears, with my volume, that I was in pain, that I was really hurt. And one of the biggest turning points for me with Eric, 2 summers ago, we were having a discussion in bed late at night. We were sober and something was really hurting me. And I was sitting upright in bed. I was very logistical, like I was in a court of law. I was making my points very clearly, very organized. I wasn't crying. I was fully clothed. I was explaining with that eye contact, looking straight forward, with hand gestures, with my straight fingers, very pointed, and I made perfect sense. And I was feeling so proud of myself in the moment because I was delivering this without emotion. I like practiced this in my head without even knowing it in the shower before bed. And Eric had this beautiful moment where he gave me this feedback that he was exasperated with me and very clear in saying, I cannot fucking feel you. You're like a robot. I can't hear your words. There's no emotion in you. If you're upset, then fucking yell at me. Why are you sitting so straight? And he called into question my physicality, my deliverability. And I was aware instantly of my erectness.
Composure.
My composure, very good, my rigidity. And I didn't sleep that night because he was so right. And I remember feeling like crying after he said that. But I remember also him having a very beautiful moment of holding me and making that point so clear that it's through my gesture, it's through my storm, it's through the fiery Irish part of me that's going to get his attention, and that most men are indeed sensitive to the physicality and the bigness of truth, of emotion, of in the moment feedback. That includes pleasure. How would he know if something he does, how he touches me or how he speaks to me, if it's good? I'm quick to make a wincing sound if the noise is too loud. I'm quick to moan and coo if something he's doing to me physically feels amazing, or if I'm titillated by something that's got me in my anticipation. But boy, when it comes to anything below the line, so to speak, I clammed up for so many years.
Yeah, and you were proud of the fact that you were so composed, and you were complimented for being like one of the boys, one of the guys, for being so competent, for having no needs, for having no desires other than sex, the ideal woman. But the issue with that is it took a toll on your health, took a toll on your physical health and your mental health over time. And I am here being like, wait a second. That is a lie. You're lying to me and you're lying to the world. Stop lying. Tell the truth. And that adjustment to start telling the truth has been a real transition. But as we've done this and we've been in it, it's been so transformative, because the biggest gift that you can give a man isn't just your pure femininity. The biggest gift that I think a woman can hold a man is her pain, because it's in her pain that he starts to gain the capacity to alchemize pain. And then I can just grow and grow and grow, and I can change, and I become a better and better version of myself. And I'm not doing it to please you. I'm not doing it so as to make you happy. I'm doing it because it is in my desire, in my interest, to not have my own pain, right? And your pain becomes my pain. Like when I start taking on your pain and taking full responsibility for it, when you're in pain, I feel it as my own pain. And so then it becomes, oh, wait, I'm going to have to alchemize mine and hers. And I start getting curious. And speaking about in the last episode, is this something mental? Is this something that's physical? Is this something overwhelmed? You start assessing the situation. And I'm not there just trying to placate you or to do what you are asking me to do. I'm trying to assess what is the best move next. One of the things that's really an important part of this is how much empathy, compassion, devotion brings us together. And that only really happens through pain. And I think age has been this wonderful teacher of that. And my own physical ailments has been a wonderful teacher of that. You know, one of the things that I've learned a lot from is actually learning from Brene Brown, her words about empathy and really understanding what that is and not being in this place of victim or feeling sorry or trying to get out of it, but really being able to sit with pain, sit with someone else's pain, sit with our own pain, and not try to fix it, but just really be in there. And what I found is that as I've really contemplated it, I've seen that it goes back to David Deida's work. And that book, The Way of the Superior Man, was probably my introduction into this world of relationships and kind of conscious relationships. And I remember reading that and being struck by this stage 2 and moving stage 1 to stage 2. And one of the things that I've been speaking to you a lot about lately is being like, let's let stage 2 be our rock bottom. What is that to be that? And part of that is Brene Brown's work, because really when we are able to be in empathy, we're able to be into that David Deida stage 2 where we're really considering the other person.
Can you speak to what stage 1 is?
Yeah, so stage 1 is that we're in a relationship and I'm just thinking about my own interests and you're thinking about your own interests. And essentially that's what it is. And it's like a lot of old school masculine sort of behavior. Even if I'm doing it in a way that's kind or I have that kind of respect, at the end of the day, I'm just thinking about myself and my needs. And you
And
likewise.
not thinking about how your behaviors affect other
Yeah,
people.
you don't have the empathy for the other person and you're not able to put yourself in their shoes. And then stage 2 is when you're really able to see things from the other perspective. It's neutral, but that's actually important for you to then move into stage 3, which is really what conscious dominance is all about. It's really this stage 3. And I think one of the big things that I've found with stage 2 with the empathy is that I start feeling like your body is my body. And it's fun from a kinky perspective, but it also means that your pain is my pain. And that if you have ailments and physical things, that when you're hurt, I'm hurt.
And the
When
same goes for me. When you
Yeah.
were injured last summer,
I saw the
your
impact of it.
injury really affected.
Yeah, it really
It
did.
injured me.
And it affected my kids and everybody. So there's a period of our relationship where we were long distance. I would tell Rachael, I said, please know that your body is my body, that what you are doing, even when you're away from me, and how you take care of yourself, you're taking care of the thing that is most precious to me, the thing that is the biggest gift for me. So please take care of yourself. And a lot of that was about not overworking and overburdening and overtaxing.
And remembering really basic things, even like drinking water or getting enough sleep. I really did enjoy the response in my body that if I was his most precious thing, I was in that place of being and feeling owned, feeling like, controversial sentence here, but I was his property. And I take care of things I care about. I take care of things that I borrow from other people that is precious to them. And at a time in my life when we first met where I wasn't necessarily taking very good care of myself, it actually really helped me to flip that script and to be in that space, which often gets kinkified and should be, and is really fun to imagine, also really problematic for others. But for me, it really helped me respect and love and care for myself in a way that externalized it. As a person who tends to be a people pleaser, as a person who is an Enneagram 2, and somebody who really can feel that by doing for others, it helps me flip that script in a way that made it much more natural for me to do it for him or for other people. So that was something that I wanted him to experience, the gift of me in my wellness, and still do. And that's been something that I've absolutely leaned more and more into. It helped us.
I was really impressed with all the work that you did on yourself. I felt like when you came to me, you'd been doing all that work on trauma and EMDR. It's really beautiful.
That's really what became my priority on your urging.
Mhm.
It began with just simple sleep and getting enough water. But for me to really take care of the unconscious things while we were in a distanced experience, knowing that that wouldn't be forever, looking at the unconscious places that would sabotage our relationship or would sabotage my relationship with myself, that kept me in immature spaces so that I could really come to you in the physical union that we were building our life towards and do as much work as I could do by myself while I was dominantly with myself, so that when we did come together, we could do the work that we are innately going to do together in the laboratory of relationship. Because while it sounds really wonderful to be together, it's deep, big work and it's really hard. So my challenges really became something that we navigated together and vice versa. In fact, Eric's line to me when he first called me when we were moving towards physical union was, I have done enough work on my own. I'm ready to do the work that we can do together. And I really mirrored that sentiment back to him. Yes, I'm ready to do the work that we're going to do together. We've done a lot of personal work to come into union, not necessarily in a clean or perfect way by any means, but in a way that was very conscientious. And this is where we really were able to drop the separation from our previous selves and come into unity together, to be in our empathic stance and to be pretty aware of our, using Deida's words, the stage 2 relationship, where we can really feel self and feel other. It's both. It's not that you only feel other and you only feel self in stage 1. Stage 2 is that you feel both at the same time.
And I think one of the big things that I've learned is that stage 2 is included in stage 3. You don't go to stage 3 and you ignore stage 2. Like it's
Yeah,
the
each
stepping
one carries forth. That's a good way to say
Yeah,
that.
transcend and include.
And I think that the ultimate challenge for all of us is, how do we care for the other without carrying them completely? Even though I like to think that Eric carries me, and I do feel that, he isn't holding everything for me. Part of my showing up is how I show up to gift him my voice, my complaint, my direction, my pain, my discomfort, my every detail I can possibly share, and how liberating that is for me not to hold it all on my own, not to be in secret anymore, not to be so mysterious. And I thought it would take away the mystique and the eroticism, and it in fact did not. It has deepened it tremendously to be able to be more and more and more clear, not about what I need, that's his decision, but what I actually feel, what I'm experiencing. And really, my role is to observe and report, to bring that forth to him. And it's been powerful, uncomfortable, but powerful.
It's new, it's creative. We're breaking patterns and breaking habits. And I think that's where you start feeling really youthful and really juicy.
Yeah.
I think this has been a great episode. I'd like to just have us take a pause so that we can continue this conversation, where I would really love to talk more about how we can create some art around this dynamic and to introduce some practical experiments for couples to try.
Yeah, we're just getting to the heart of how this actually transforms relationships, because this all sounds, however it sounds to you, but to us it was very liberating to even begin to imagine how we would do this, and then to actually start putting it into practice was challenging, and was really helpful to have a bit of not just concepts but actual practices. How this pain that we said in the beginning becomes information about where each of us may be available for growth, and how our needs really become invitations for Eric to really become the man that this relationship at this level requires.
And all of you listening, both men and women, when you're feeling fine, and that word fine is a great word.
And hashtag fine.
Yeah, hashtag fine. Fucking incapable of negotiating emotions. There's all kinds of ways of defining it. But if you're feminine, how can you say it more explicitly to your man. And if you're a man in the next week and you're feeling that, how can you sit with yourself, not necessarily bring it to anyone, but sit with yourself and hold yourself in that, and really just notice it when we're performing the fine and it's bullshit, and actually start taking it past the fine.
Yeah, where we're actually struggling, where that lying is happening, where the recognition with your partner, where are they carrying invisible weight?
Mm-hmm.
Where is their weight that they may not be seeing? And let's define that weight as tasks. In fact, just a few hours ago, we're meeting some friends for dinner and we're picking up dinner. And it occurred to me that obviously I should ask my friends what they would like for us to pick up. And so without asking Eric, I sent a little text to the couple and said, "Hey guys, let me know your order." And as I hit send, I was like, there you go again. There you go again, doing things. Now, not that that's wrong. It's great that I do that. I'm incredibly efficient. I run a tight ship. But that's the habit I'm looking to break, is that instead of taking the action, what would it be like for me to just inform Eric? I didn't even think to ask if he'd already done that. He's friends with these people too. He has their number. He knows what our plans are today. He has absolute awareness of the tactical nature of our day. And boom, I just did it and sent the text and got so excited when my friend, a woman, wrote me back with the order with all precision and absolute thing, and just thought, oh my gosh, here we are again. It's just fun to notice, not to judge, not to criticize, but maybe just to notice the invisible labor. You would have never known that I did that, but you would benefit from the fact that I already did it.
What?
You would benefit from the fact that I would have already placed the order, past
100%.
me, would have already paid for it, would already have the pickup time. I've got it all in there. I'd put it in the calendar. I'd set you a reminder. I'm like the best assistant ever.
You're the best personal assistant, Hermione, ever. It's heavenly, but it takes a toll. It takes an unconscious, and there's limited amount. And this is the main point: is just because you're competent at it doesn't mean it doesn't necessarily take a toll, or doesn't mean you're really actually enjoying it.
Yeah. So what invisible labor are you receiving in a partnership that you take for granted, that you don't even know is happening? It was powerful for me to tell you the thought process and the strategy that goes through my mind about when to shave my legs, when to do what, how I have to time it with the time of day and the event that I have to go to and what that feels like. Or another friend of ours talks about her hair extensions, the coloring of the hair and the cutting of the hair and the maintenance that has to happen in between and the deep conditioning. It's wild, and we're just talking about two very, very shallow subjects.
And I think it's not to judge any one of these things. It's just that they all add up.
It's a huge running to-do list.
Exactly.
It's a constant ticker of labor and responsibility and caretaking, even if it's self-caretaking, even if it's tiny.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
We're going to continue this next week. Thank you for listening. And if you've recognized any of yourself in Rachel's story, and you're ready to risk being seen instead of being safe, you may want to get in touch with her or me. We guide individuals and couples through the DSRX framework.
You may find us over on Instagram at DSRX_studio. The link in the bio will get you on our mailing list for weekly reminders and free resources and other announcements that we have.
You can follow her at Arosha
on Instagram. Or you can jump on arosha.art, a website that has a lot of free resources. We love hearing from you via email for any episode requests that you may have, any topics that you'd like us to explore, or requests that might include a live Q&A or any other ideas that you have that you'd like to hear from us.
Appreciate all the feedback. So until next time, thank you. Thank you for being there.